welcome
Thank
to
you.
the Wind Down. I'm so excited to have you here.
You and me both.
Oh, I'm so excited. I was trying to remember this morning when we first met, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you might have a better memory. I don't have a great memory, but I think it might have been the Business Chicks event, and you were hosting a table that I was on, and I was like, what's your role? What are you doing here today? And you're like, I'm the entrepreneur in residence.
Yes, that was right. Yeah.
And I was like, the entrepreneur in residence.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool
It sounds
title.
pretty cool, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's a fancy title.
It was.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about your career, business, life, family, the whole bit.
Okay.
But before we jump into it, the first question that we always ask everyone on this podcast is, because we're called the Wind Down, is I want to know how you relax, wind down, and like chill out at the end of a busy day or a busy week. How does Tina Tower wind down?
I wish I had a better answer than this that's a bit more like sophisticated.
Okay.
But watch Netflix.
Oh, do you know what? Everyone says that. Netflix and a cup of tea and PJs has been like the most
Take the
popular
bra
answer.
off and then watch Netflix.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's nothing better than taking that
Yeah.
bra off for the first
Perfect.
time.
Mhm.
I love it. Do you have hobbies? Do you have any hobbies that you do?
No. So
And you can't say business, because business is not a hobby.
Exactly. And I have been trying to develop this because I saw a wellness coach about 2 years ago when I had adrenal fatigue. And she asked what my hobbies were. And I said either work or spend time with my family. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my hobby. And
Yeah.
so I tried this whole heap of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what I love. I like business. Or I guess hanging with family in a way
Yeah.
is a hobby. But we like to go bushwalking and bike riding and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you're
So-
pretty active. You do lots of cool stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting.
But I don't paint or anything
I
like that.
know.
I read a lot.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yeah, that can count. Definitely. Whatever you're doing that's like just gets your mind off kind of that full on everyday
Yeah.
in business mode, I think is so
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
And that's a big message that we're trying to get out, is because,
Yes.
you know, and you know the hustle and grind so well, and we're going to talk about that.
Mm.
But first, Tina, you are a powerhouse. Like,
Aw.
you really are. Like, you know, when I speak to people in business, there's a lot of talkers out there.
Yes.
But you are a doer. You are one of the rare like unicorns that is actually a real doer. And so you love starting, scaling, and selling businesses.
I really do.
You love that, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my favorite thing. I mean, that's why Hobbies is hard, is
Yeah.
because nothing brings me more joy
Yeah.
than building businesses.
And now you're helping other people build businesses as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, which is so fun because you're kind of seeing people step into an area that, you know, they've got self-doubt around and they're not sure whether they can do it, and then they do it and then they shine, and it's just, yeah,
You love
so
that.
exciting.
You are really, like, you're so infectious, because whenever I see you, you can't help, like right now I've got the biggest smile on my face because you always do life with a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of positive energy going on.
I actually had someone write into podcasts, so I've got my own podcast, Her Empire Builder, and say that I giggled too much and should really look at doing less giggling, especially when I'm doing solo episodes and I'm just like giggling at myself.
You do have a great giggle though.
Well, only after that did I actually realize how much I giggle, and then I kind of thought, you know what, I'm gonna giggle. If you don't like it, go listen to
There's
someone super
worse
serious.
things that you could be
Yeah.
doing than giggling.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Wow. People are so critical sometimes,
Yeah.
aren't they? I reckon giggling's fine in my book.
Me too.
Okay, so take me back. So for those that may not know who you are, where you've come from,
Yeah.
can you give me a little bit of a background of where you've come from and the great stuff that you've been doing over the last decade?
Yeah. Well, yesterday was actually 15 years since I opened the doors to my first business.
Unbelievable.
So that was exciting.
And how old were you when you started your first?
20. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So 20. I mean, there's a lot of people that start in their teens.
These days they do.
yeah. But I was 20 when I started my first one. So it was an educational toy store, tutoring centre, birthday party place. And I kind of had no grand plans when I opened it. It was really just a way to pay my way through uni. And it wasn't until it kind of started and everything happened that I was like, this is the most fun you could ever possibly have. Like, why would I ever go and do any job when I just loved it? I was hooked on the freedom. I was hooked on the experimentation of it, the whole thing, and the money as well.
Yeah.
Like that you could get something and then do something to it and then sell it for more. Like the whole thing, just I love it. Yeah, so it kind of morphed through that. until I had my first baby when I was 24. And then I realized I'd set up the business all wrong. I had no idea what I was missing at the time, but I had no systems. We had 17 staff and no one could do anything without me. And I was kind of in such a deep place then that it was too late to develop it. So I had a bit of a hissy fit about 7 days before Christmas, marked everything down 70% off and closed the doors. So that was a big move, but a great move because it let me then be at home, and then the program we developed in the tutoring centre, we licensed to that.
Yep.
And so that kind of went through licensing, then franchising, and the rest.
And then the rest was history, as they say. So, but like at 20, when you're starting your own business, like where does that belief and ambition come from? Because I've read your book, and we're going to get to your book, and it's fabulous. It's called One Life, and it is incredible. We'll talk about that. Because what I was really intrigued and interested with your story is I thought, because you know we've spoken, I've met you at events, but you don't really dive in deep straight away into someone's history and background. And so when I read your book, I learned so much about you, and I really thought that you must have come from like an entrepreneurial sort of family. But you didn't.
No.
Like, tell us about growing up and who young Tina was, because I'm trying to get into the psyche of like, you get to 20, you leave school, you go to uni, and then you start a business at 20, and then it blows up and becomes this massive success. And it wasn't an overnight success. There was so many challenges along the way, right?
Nothing really is.
And nothing ever is. Nothing. Success does not come easily.
Yes.
And everyone we rarely celebrate we rarely talk about the challenges, but always like talk about the celebrations, but that's why I loved your book so much.
At one point when I was writing it, I thought, gosh, this is like the greatest hits of my biggest failures. I better put a positive bit in here too, because there's everything. There's the good and the bad all rolled into one. But to answer your question, so up until writing the book, I'd never publicly talked about it. Every time someone in an interview like this would say, how did you get so motivated so young? I would always say, just really intrinsically motivated and wanted financial freedom, which is true, but it came from a whole history of having nothing and having that emotional abuse and so much going on that when I was a teenager, I'd left home for a bit and then came back, and it was a horrible situation to be in. But I was lucky enough to find personal development. And I found it at such a vulnerable stage of my life that I think sometimes people would find religion like that.
Yes.
And it kind of becomes a bit cult-like.
Yeah.
That's how I came into personal development. And I was sold hook, line and sinker, totally. Like when I went to Anthony Robbins and Robert Kiyosaki when I was 16. And when Anthony Robbins stood there and was like, any life you can imagine, you can achieve it. A lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, yeah, like bit of an eye roll. Yeah. I was like, I can? What? This is amazing. Yeah. And so I actually did it, and I created a vision for my life and the people I wanted to have in it, the friendships I wanted, the marriage I wanted, the children I wanted, the business I wanted, everything that I wanted, and went about making it.
And you just did it.
Yeah.
And I guess you really clinged to that, didn't you? Because at home life was tough for you growing up. Yeah. There was a lot of arguments going on, a lot of kind of emotional abuse. Yeah. And you write so beautifully, and like that was like the first couple of chapters in, I already had tears because I was like, oh my gosh, people, like it was really hard because our realities are so different, where I have a really, really close relationship with my mum, and then to read about the relationship with your mum where it's completely different to what I'm used to, I was like, wow. So you just threw yourself into self-development and was like, right, this is going to save me, and this is true for me.
Totally. Yeah.
And then you just went and
I
made
needed that too. Like I needed I didn't really have the guidance with parents to be able to do that. And for a lot of people that have beautiful parental relationships, it's very hard to understand how any parent could ever treat their child like that, however any child could ever be like that. But for a lot of people that have had kind of traumatic relationships with their parents, it's a hard thing to define.
Because you ran away at 14.
Yeah.
And you slept out the front of a fruit shop or in the back of a fruit shop on
like the boxes.
But you know what I loved about you, and I was like, that is so Tina, is that you still took your school uniform.
I did.
to like
your education was very important to me.
So funny. So you were
Yeah.
still organised and were like, oh, no, I'll be going to school. I'm just going to sleep
Yeah.
out the back of a fruit shop
Yeah,
tonight.
and the teachers had no idea. It went on for a while before they actually found out that that was the situation. And because I didn't want that to be my life. At that time,
Yeah.
I was very ashamed of the family that I came from. And, you know, it took me a long time. Even now, like 2 of my brothers are in jail, and it's just not a nice situation. And so I never wanted to talk about it ever, because I always believed in late teens and 20s that was somehow a reflection of me and who I was. And it took me a long time to really figure out, actually, that's where I came from, but it doesn't have anything to do with who I am now.
And that's great. And like the first chapter of the book is about how you don't allow, you know, you shouldn't let the past define you.
Yeah.
And I love that. So talk maybe a little bit deeper into adversity. So you think you use that as an advantage to kind of get ahead, and it can actually really benefit you in creating the life that you really want,
it's a beautiful motivator.
Yeah.
I mean, the catalyst for actually starting to talk about it and putting it in the book was I was having these repeated conversations with women going, you know, it's easy for you. You did this and this has come for you, and everything just happened so easily, and you're so upbeat, and all of these different things.
Yeah.
And in the end, it was getting a bit frustrating and going, you know what, everybody, no matter who you are, whether you've had good childhood, bad childhood, whatever it is, everyone has a story that's at some point in their lives made them question their self-worth, made them feel less than, made them kind of have this thing in the background that made them feel not enough to achieve the dreams, the big dreams that they've set themselves. And so it was really important for me to go, how can you actually recognize that, articulate it, and use it as a motivation to move on?
I love it. It's so true, because I struggled so much at school. And so my biggest button, you know, we all have our own triggers.
Totally, everybody does.
Everyone has a trigger. My trigger is when I'm made to feel stupid or dumb.
Yeah.
That is my biggest button.
Yeah.
And it really it triggers me in, and I can't quite cope because I struggled at school.
Yes.
Pulled out of normal classes, had to do one-on-one for like a year. And what that does to like a 10-year-old, like you can carry that around.
Totally.
But I use it to my advantage now, because I'm like, you know, you kind of sometimes have a bit of chip on your shoulder because you're like, I'm going to show them, you know, I'm not stupid. But it's like if I was getting straight A's at school, there's no way that I would have the determination or resilience that you have today.
Yeah. It's that beautiful need to prove yourself, which is good fuel for a short amount of time.
Yeah, okay.
Not a long time.
Right. Yeah, that's right, because sometimes it can eat you up.
Yes.
And then, I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah. So let's talk about business. You love business. I love business. What do you love most about business?
Creating something from nothing.
Yeah.
I think for me, you know, when I had Begin Bright, which was a franchise system, so that it kind of came from, you know, this idea that I had in my mind, what I wanted to create. And then I would walk down the street and I'd see kids walking along the street with our library bags and big smiles on their faces, and reports coming in from all the different schools about the kids that we'd taught, and thousands of children every week going through there, and women owning these centres, and the signage all over buildings all over the country, and just going, that all started from me going, I think we could do better on this. I think we can create this. And that whole thing, I think that you can have an idea and work at it and create something awesome. It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Just the creativity, you know?
Yeah.
And I loved it in your book when you're talking about the tutoring business, that, you know, people would come in because they were struggling at school.
Yeah.
So you were like, well, we'll start a whole program where they come to us before they start school, and you're giving kids like a leg up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, completely.
Such a good concept. And to
Yes.
do that and identify that so early on, pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really frustrating, and most of the kids when we started the tutoring centre would come in tears, because they would come in because it was like a desperate situation where they weren't coping at school, where, like you just said before, you know, they're having to get one-on-one help and they can't keep up, and their whole mentality was, I'm stupid, I'm not a good learner, I can't do this, which totally just got my ghoulies.
Yeah.
Because school defines us in a way that has an effect. I mean, I would have their parents come in and go, it makes sense because, you know, I wasn't a good speller. And they're still carrying around all of that.
Yeah.
But for me, I was going, you know, I got 54% in general maths in my HSC. I just passed.
Yeah.
I now teach people how to read balance sheets, P&Ls. Like, I am brilliant with finances.
Yeah.
So, like, that doesn't mean anything.
It really doesn't. When you can put it in real life context like that, like same. Like I think I used to call it mass in the pub
Yeah.
at school. I think it was
Yeah.
MIP, like mass in practice, and
Yeah.
it was like the lowest form of mass that
Yeah.
you could do. But yeah, same. Like I'm great with the P&L now, and if I can put it in context, then I sit there with a calculator at night and go,
Yeah.
oh, if I sell this many candles, if I,
Yeah.
we get into, and I love that.
But it would have taken you a while when you started your business to actually
Oh, yeah.
go, you know what, I can do this.
100%, because
Yeah.
you always have those fears and those doubts.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you built this business up, and how many years did you have Begin Bright for?
14.
14.
13. Yeah.
And you franchised, and how many franchises did you have?
33.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then what led you, because you went on to sell the business,
Yes.
was that always your intention when you started to build it? Were you like, you know what, because you did have an end goal.
Yeah.
You are a planner and you love to
Yes.
plan. We're going to talk about planning soon,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, was that the intention at the start?
No. So when I started franchising, the goal was to get to 100.
Yes.
Then to go international and then see what that looked like. See whether I had to employ a CEO or whether I was going to stay there. And that was the plan. And so, it was it was difficult to change that because I've been my whole life so hooked on the vision and the plan. Like it's laser like focus to a damaging degree. And for me, it wasn't, you don't know what something's actually going to be like until you do it. And so we got to about 15 franchises, loved it. Once we started pushing past that 20, 25 locations, I started feeling that heaviness and going, okay, this is all about responsibility and legals and it's just compliance and so serious. And so I lost that ability to experiment in business. Everything's got to be compliant. And anyway, so I was there and going, we're drilled into this whole never quit, never give up thing. And so for me to actually turn around and go, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And if we're at 30 now, when I actually visualized what the company would look like at 100 with me at the helm, I was like, I see nothing but pain.
Yeah, and you were hustling and grinding.
Oh, so
full
bad.
on, like long hours, right?
Yeah, 12-hour days.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it takes its toll. What
Totally does.
At what cost? What happened
Yeah.
when you were working that way?
Everything went wrong. I'm slightly ashamed to say the thing that was the biggest alarm bell for me was weight gain. So I had acute tonsillitis, glandular fever, all the things, kept powering through all of it. Almost felt this massive pride that I could power through it, which is terrible. But when the doctor said to me, like I did all the blood tests and he said, you've had glandular fever in the past 12 months, like you would have been floored. And I was like, I think there was a couple of weeks where I was really sick, but no, I never went to bed. I never did. And I actually felt proud of that. And then I was like, this is awful. But for me, the real thing was I gained 18 kilos in a 2-year period.
Right.
And that was where I was like, what on earth? Because I eat really well, I move, I do all the things. It was just literally my body stopped making cortisol. My thyroid all had big issues and I just held everything.
And is that because of the stress and the not sleeping?
So sleep, I always slept fine. So I was lucky with that. But it was really due to cortisol levels. So heightened adrenaline constantly.
Yeah, and that is so not healthy.
Yeah,
right?
it's not. But you don't kind of realize until you crash. And that's where I say the motivation that I had got me so far really beautifully. But it came a time where I had to go, this isn't a healthy fuel to be fueled by this incessant need to prove your worth by how hard and how fast you can work.
Do you remember the moment where you're like, okay, enough is enough?
Yeah.
I can't work like this anymore.
Yeah, none of my clothes fit.
Oh, it was that
Well,
point.
it was the vanity of the
Okay.
weight was the biggest thing for me. And then I went and saw a health coach and she ran through a whole series of things. And I didn't remember a time where I didn't feel nauseous. My hands shook a lot of the time. Like I would look down at different intervals and my hands would be just slightly shaking. I was taking Nurofen or Panadol pretty much every day for headaches. But I got so used to that I didn't really pay attention to it. Like now when I say it, I'm like, you're an idiot. What were you even thinking? But I didn't have time to think.
You did,
I was just so busy and determined to get it done that I didn't stop and really think about it. So when I did that, I was like, okay, all of this is getting thrown out. Like I'm smarter than that. I can do better.
Yeah.
And so it totally changed the way I live.
Oh, I can totally relate to that.
I know you can.
And you've actually inspired and helped me a lot because, because I do Insta stories quite a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll send me a message going, oh my gosh, is that seriously your day in the life? Too many meetings, too much running around.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're killing yourself.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. And it's only recently, I got sick a few years ago as well. And it's funny, like so many women that I speak to in business, which has kind of inspired this whole podcast, is to learn the pattern seems to be we work really, really hard up until a point we work ourselves into the ground, we get really sick, and then all of a sudden we change our lives.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, so because you hustled and did that for so long, you got really sick, do you think you would be as successful as you are now had you have not done that? Or do you think you'd be more successful because you might have been thinking a little bit more clearly? Like, I've got my own opinions on that, but what do you think about that?
I think it's an impossible question to answer.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people say that to me, but you wouldn't have got what you got done if you hadn't have done it. But I actually think I would have got more done.
Yeah.
Because weirdly now, this whole like mentality of slowing down to speed up, when I work less, I get more done. So routinely now, my time to shine is like 8 till 2 in the day. After 2 o'clock, I can kind of do emails and that sort of thing, but I'm not getting anything gold done.
Yeah.
And after that, it'll take me longer to do something than what it will if I just am really planned and systematic in the mornings. I get way more done.
Yeah, it's funny. You're so right. I've switched the way that I'm starting to work, and just having those like no distraction periods of time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would just usually, have a to-do list, but everyone else would be coming up the stairs, asking questions, phones ringing, my phone's like buzzing, social media's going
chaotic.
crazy, the phone, the landline, the mobile. You've really got to kind of switch it and work out a plan that works for you.
Yeah.
You love planning, don't you?
I love planning.
Yeah, you're a great planner.
I'm obsessed with planning. Probably too much so.
So tell us, because I'm okay at planning.
Yeah.
I'm not as good as you with the planning. I'm very creative. I like a big picture kind of goal, which is like you see my vision board over there. I love creating.
That's a gorgeously huge vision board.
Oh yeah, well Phil, my husband, built that for me because I could only find little ones at Officeworks. So I was like, oh no, I need a much. There's a lot going on in this head. It's a mega board.
It's a big vision.
I have a big vision. I love it. I love a big vision.
Yeah.
But I'm not great day to day. I'm getting better. I'm starting to implement a few little things.
Yeah.
What are like your three, would you have a top 3 kind of checklist or tools or things that people should implement if they want to get more out of their day?
Yeah, and I think being planned allows you to do more with less time, because a lot of the time when we're just running, we're spending the time actually figuring out what are we supposed to do next and trying to remember what we're supposed to do next and catching our tail. So the other day I saw on social media like this meme from Gary Vee, which I know some people are mad Gary Vee fans.
No, I'm in love with Gary Vee. He's actually my hall pass.
Oh no.
I know you hate him, don't you?
I don't. I admire what he's achieved.
Yeah.
And I admire his dedication.
I love Gary Vee
But
so much.
he said, everyone, if you want success, you need to be working 100 hours a week. Because if everybody else is working 40 and you're working 100, you're getting double done. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
You're not.
I think sometimes, because he's started to create a few videos on this recently, I think he's been taken out of context a little bit. So I watch him every day. And he's starting to say, look, I think people are taking, he must have got a lot of backlash over it. And so he's starting to just correct himself by saying, I still sleep 8 hours a day, like sleep's really, really important.
What else is he doing?
Well, work. He does work a lot. Yeah. I don't know if he's got hobbies. He does like garage sales and flip stuff. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
So with that, I do think that, working that much is just a recipe for burnout. It's just going to happen. But also, so after I had my whole thing and then was like, well, can I do what I want to do on less hours? Because I'm all about productivity. Yeah. So I read all these papers by neuroscientists about productivity and brain scans of things, of how much your brain lights up and the pace at which it does it. So if you're working less, how quick your brain pathways actually connect to each other. Whereas if you're doing, once you get past like 6 hours, it slows down the whole connection. But we don't know that. We don't actually register that. But if you time yourself doing different things at different times of the day, you notice the different patterns. So I tested and measured all of that, which is how I figured out my sweet spot was 8 till 2. Okay. So I may as well be really hyper planned with that, so that there's no kind of what am I supposed to be doing and wasting time doing that? I just get in there and do it. So every Friday I plan the following week.
Okay.
It's because we have this most people have a massive to-do list of things that they want to do. But what that does is you get to the end of the day and just feel this perpetual inadequacy that you didn't get nearly enough things done that you wanted to do. Sometimes the to-do list is longer at the end of the day than it was at the beginning of the day. But for most people, if you actually worked out how much time those things took, of course you weren't going to get that much done. We just have these overly optimistic kind of sense of how much we can achieve.
Yeah.
And so the way I do it is on a Friday I work out exactly what I want to get done, how much time it's going to take, and then I block that out in my calendar so that, if I need to record a podcast episode, I know that that's going to take about 2 hours. And so I put that in the calendar. And then once that calendar is full, and it's amazing how quickly that fills up.
Yeah.
And then you look at everything else on your list and go, okay, so I need to either cross some stuff out or delegate it or say no to different things if they're more important. So that's how I do it.
Oh, so good. Yeah, I've started to try to do that. When I'm disciplined.
Yeah, it does take discipline.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's a hard thing to keep the discipline to it because we're constantly bombarded with the shiny lights.
Yeah, and new things are coming in all the time and
Yes.
client demands and all of that.
Yes.
And we work with the agency side of the business at Flourish. Breaking news will happen and all my good plans just go out the window.
And it does depend on business type.
Yeah.
You need to have, in your day, I'd go, half your day just needs to be white space for just stuff that comes up.
Yeah.
But the rest of it could be really
Could be
systematically
And you love
scheduled.
a good automated system, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's so many things that we repeat that take up precious brain space that we need
It's
that
true.
could all be systemized and automated, which I learned that all through franchising and through the first business that I stuffed up because it wasn't systemized.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So you went on to sell your business.
Yes.
I think I didn't mention that before. You went on to sell it.
Yeah.
What did that feel like when you, because you sold it pretty quick?
Very quick. Yeah, very quick. So when I decided to exit, we put it up in the March, and then 3 weeks later we had 3 great offers, and I went with the best one, and then it settled in July.
Wow.
So it did seem really quick at the time, but I had a massive identity crisis.
Of course.
After. I had no idea who I was without that. Because, when we run business, how long have you had Flourish for?
10
while, isn't it?
years, yeah.
So if you exited that and exited PR, who would you even be?
Yeah. I know.
You define yourself so much by what
Yeah.
it is that we do. And so I had this whole thing where I was like, well, what do I do now? Who am I? I'm
Where
good
do I
for nothing
go?
or no one. And oh my God, who am I? This whole thing.
Yeah.
Which was weird because in a sense of what we try and create, a successful sale of a business is one of the greatest
That's
things
the
that
goal
can
for so many.
happen. Yeah. Yeah. But we had probably, I remember the night that it settled, I just grabbed my dogs, put on my dressing gown, had a gin and tonic and just sat there just like a deer in headlights, just going,
What now?
so I did that. Okay. I didn't have that elation that I thought I would have had. Yeah.
And then you went and did you worked with them for a little while. That
did.
must have been strange, right?
So hard. One of the hardest things I've ever had to go
You're
through.
the boss,
Yeah.
and then someone buys you out, and then you have to go back in
Yes.
and be an employee.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being an employee.
I'm
I can't
not a
imagine
good
you
one.
being an employee.
No,
I
I
would
was not a good one at all. It's
But
very
you gave
bad.
it a crack. You
I
gave it a
did.
crack.
But it was good because always in the back of my mind, I kind of wondered what it would be like when I'd see people in corporate and the paycheck is great and doing all of that. So I always kind of had that in the back of my mind. I wonder what that life. Anyway, I know unequivocally it's not. The
Doesn't
life
work for
me.
you. Well,
Yeah.
now you know. Now
I
you
know.
know. You'll never have to do that again.
Yeah.
And so now you have an online business.
Yeah.
Laptop life. You can literally work from anywhere,
Yes.
which I love.
Yes.
Do you love that style of working now?
So much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I'd found it earlier, but I do know, that everything that we do leads us to where we had to go. But how hard I worked before and how hard we have to work in service-based businesses compared to online businesses is crazy.
Yeah, I
crazy.
bet. And so you're teaching a lot of people how to build an online business, right?
Yeah, so it kind of morphed when I sold the business because we'd had the successful acquisition. A lot of people asked for coaching. And so it's I could do that while I figure out what I'm going to do. Didn't realize how much I would love it, which kind of makes sense because it's still that teacher in me being able to do that. So
Yeah.
it's all being used.
Yeah.
But then we decided to travel. So we went around the world for 9 months and I kept doing that while we were going. And then I created an online course of all of these because I was repeating the same stuff and I'm going, people are paying a lot of money for private coaching, but I'm saying the same thing to this person that I just said an hour ago. Like, that's a waste of our time. So all of the repeatable stuff I kind of put in this bank of videos. And then a lot of people were going, I want to create that sort of online kind of learning for my service-based business. How can I do that? So then I made an online course for how to make an online course. And it went so well. And so now I'm really working with mainly women to kind of package their expertise and draw that out and put it into an online program and speaking and podcasting and the whole personal brand thing.
It's so great. I love that type of business. It gets me very excited. And so because you are coaching or working with a lot of women, what are you seeing to be like the thing that stops most women from being successful or having like the life of their dreams? What are the themes that tend to come up a lot?
Yeah, I mean, there's often external things. A lot of people can't imagine, you know, the circumstances that they have now, how they can get from where they are to where they want to go. But most of it's internal. Most of it is self-doubt. Most of it is finding the courage to actually break the expectations that either people have put on themselves or externally have been put on them. I think that's the biggest thing that stops people, is when they go to do something, like going, is that possible for me? And what if I fail? Will that be embarrassing? You know, that whole thing.
It's that fear factor, right?
Yeah.
That I loved it in the book as well. Like literally you have a whole page where you list your failures.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I love that because I think it's so important to highlight.
Yeah.
Because through all those failures, you're like, okay, well, I learnt this, I won't do it again. And that leads to where you are today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and people only see the highlights. So people will see now, like, the different things that we have, but they don't see how many different things you tried that didn't work out, and how many different iterations, and how many pitches you've done that you got rejected in, and all of the things that you went for that didn't work. People don't see that.
They don't.
And I think it's easy for people to assume that, you know, you get 100% of the shots you take, but you very much don't.
Yeah.
The people that are successful are the ones that just try harder.
Yeah, just keep trying and building that resilient muscle, really.
Yeah.
Because you went through, like, from the outside, people think, oh, Tina, she's so bubbly, she's so happy and positive all the time, and you sold your company at 35, and that's such a huge thing. Like, who does that? You know, like, that's very, very rare.
Yeah.
But you went through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Like, reading the book, I was like, oh gosh, does this girl get a break? Like, you know, from, you know, people trying to sue you and take advantage of you, and you know, press reporting incorrect information, and then
a social media stalker in there as well.
I know, I couldn't believe that.
He destroyed my life.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Full on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did make me question my relationship with social media quite a bit.
Okay, it freaked you out a bit.
Because, you know, we put so much out there, and to a certain extent, I think privacy's dead to a certain amount. But how much he knew about me was so incredibly creepy. And I'd put it all out there. My kids' nicknames, where they went to school, like everything people could work out. And so I really changed the whole thing. And now the way I use social media is purely for business. There's very little kind of personal details.
So he was coming up on all your posts and commenting under different names or creating different profiles?
Everything, yeah. He spent a lot of time doing what he was doing. So it turned out in the end he was in a mental institution. And there was like 5 women that he was doing that to. And the police would go and see him all the time, because we got the police involved once. He posted on Twitter my home address and a picture of my children, and said, I'm watching you. And so that's when we were able to then get police involved. And then they came back to me and said, look, he's no threat. He can't leave his room. But because of, you know, everyone's got their rights, they couldn't actually take him off social media, even though he was doing that. So, yeah, it was hard.
There are definitely some downsides of social media, and there's some creepy people out there for sure.
Yeah. And the whole thing, like, everyone, when you don't go through it, people go, you know, just ignore it or just delete it. Like, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
It is so hard when you're getting bombarded from every direction.
But that's a whole new level. Like, that's not just a troll, because I have a few of them as well. But there's no one posting, you know, photos of, you know, I don't have kids, but my dogs or my horses all feel like, you know. And our house and your address, that's a bit creepy.
Yeah. So there's always problems
There's always
to
issues. Yeah, definitely. But onwards and upwards. So you did a family gap year. Let's talk about some good stuff.
It was amazing.
What? So you travelled for how long?
We went for 9 months. Yeah. We were planning to go for much longer, but my oldest son missed his friends. And so we came back.
He got homesick.
Yeah. But 9 months was great.
Oh, unbelievable. What did travelling and having essentially, I mean, you were doing a little bit of work on the road.
A little bit, but not really.
Not really.
Not a lot.
What did that experience teach you?
Amazing. Now it almost feels like it was a figment of my imagination. Like, it's so far removed from our daily reality that a lot of the time I have to go, like, we did actually do that, right? And I look at the photos. It was just so different to our normal life.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. We went to 28 countries and we just explored the world. It was
that is
phenomenal.
At such a young age still, you know.
Yeah.
And your boys were at a great age that they always remember that.
Yeah, so they were 8 and 10 when we left.
Yeah.
And it was incredible for them to do that and to see the world through their eyes too, and for them to make sense of it and all the poverty that we saw and then all the beautiful aspects that we saw, like all of it intertwined, was spectacular.
Amazing. So then you came back.
Yeah.
And you are hilarious, Tina. Like you are a very rare human. Because I think I was speaking to you like, yeah, I'm going to write a book. And I'm like, okay. And then literally, I think maybe 2 months later, yes, I've written my book. And I was like, what do you mean? I only spoke to you like 8 weeks ago.
Yeah, to me, it took a really long time. Like, it's been a really long time because we came back and we hadn't planned to come back so early. So in the back of our mind, we had no end date. We were just going to see kind of where the world took us, which I've never been in that in my life, that attitude. As you've pointed out already, I'm hyper planned.
Yes.
But I wanted the time and space to heal from everything that we'd been through and the adrenal fatigue and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. So we did that. But yeah, in the back of our mind, we kind of thought we'd end up with a surf resort in Costa Rica and just stay there for a while. So to then come back and go, okay, we just...
Like, no, let's stop there. Like that, Tina, that's like totally not normal. People don't think that way, but that's a reality. You're like, oh, well, we like the idea of it. We can do it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're all
just
about.
Just like a 15-room surf resort thing would be fun. Because, you know, someone should write a book out about it. We only have one life. And so I wanted to try all these different
That was
things.
a good plug. I like that. That was good.
You like that one?
Yep.
So we came back and then, 2 days after we got back, the kids were back at school and I cried because I missed them so much. And I was there going, all right, well, like, now what do I do? What should we do? Like, I've got to get the plan out again because planning kind of gives me security and stability and direction. I need to know what it is I'm trying to achieve. It doesn't work for me to just go, I'll just wait and see what every day does. So I thought, all right, well, I've always wanted to write a book. I'm never going to have as much time and space as I do right now because, as soon as you come out of something, when you get back in, it's like you're back into that world again and everything. Like, now I've been back 6 months, there's no way I could write it now because I don't have that beautiful space that I had. So I decided to do that, and then I took the ultimate personal sacrifice to write it and went to Fiji for a week to do it. So that was the most productive way for me to get it done.
So you wrote the book really in 8 days?
Yep.
8 days?
Yeah, but 60 hours.
Wow. But still, that's...
So most people, they say, I spent 3 months writing this book.
But it's an hour here, hour there. Yeah. But you had that dedicated, solid planning time, and then you just implemented it, got it done, came back, had a book. And here you are promoting it.
Yeah, which was a great way to do it because it was kind of, as you said, it's pretty personal, and I knew to think about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I needed to be, I was sitting there, like you said, you cried a little while you were reading it. Like, I was sitting there with my laptop just like, just bawling for hours. The poor Fijians walking past me just looking up going, what is this woman doing?
You're in paradise. You don't have to cry.
Yeah. Like, it was very, like, I just felt like I had the biggest vulnerability hangover.
Yeah.
Like, I was spent by the end of it.
Yeah.
But I think I needed to go away to really, not have my husband, not have my kids, but just really go into that and get that done.
Oh, well, you've done such a brilliant job. I absolutely love your book.
Thank
it's incredible. You. I'm going to leave all the details of the book in the show notes so people can go and buy it and check it out. And yes, seriously, guys, this is my top book for summer. Definitely read it and go and get your hands on it because it's amazing. I've got it in my hot little hand at the moment and I've got about like 50 little Post-it notes.
I love that so much.
Because I made so many notes as I was reading it. But yeah, I absolutely love it. So what's next for Tina Tower?
I'm just keeping on doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
For now, yeah. I have let the stringent plans go. I'm loving the work I'm doing now, but it's still so new. So it's just seeing where the world takes me.
Oh, such a lovely position to be in, and you've
Yeah.
made that happen. So well
Thanks,
done.
Ange.
Congratulations on everything. It's been so lovely to chat with you today on the podcast, and thanks so much for dropping in.
Thank you.